Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and many thanks for coming to this shareholder meeting. But before opening this event, I would like to dedicate a few words as a reminder of the tragic airplane accident that occurred in France a few days ago, and I'd like to express our condolences. And at this shareholder meeting that's taking place on the Shareholders' Day, we want to have a greater involvement with all of you, and at the same time, we want you to get to know Iberdrola much better and feel this company as if it were your own company. The Shareholders' Day is the end of the process that is carried out by shareholders. We've been working on this for many years. And since the early hours of this morning, we've had several presentations and performances that have not only brought you closer to our business and institutional reality, but this has allowed us to listen to your views. And we wouldn't be sensible if this attempt at increasing the transparency of our company and the feeling of belonging of our shareholders were not transferred to this shareholders meeting. So this is why you'll see that there are new developments in how this meeting is going to take place. And within the system of governance are the following. On the one hand, that together with the possibility of you asking questions, of putting questions directly when we open the floor for the discussion, we'll also have the Director for Relations with Investments, Ignacio Galán, who will make a number of remarks. And then we have the possibility of seeing on the screen how the quorum is advancing. But finally, I would like to emphasize that this year we have made further progress in the means placed at your disposal, and we've adopted the necessary measures to facilitate the presence of people with limitations. And we also have a nursery for children, as some of you suggested last year. But as the accreditation registration process has taken place normally, we're going to open this shareholders meeting. And I would like to tell you that the notary, Mr. José Antonio Susi, is with us, who will now explain the agenda. And now we're going to give the floor to the secretary, Mr. Julián San Martínez Simancas.
Buenos días. Thank you very much, Chairman. Good morning, shareholders. With the attendance figures that you have been able to follow on the screen, there is a sufficient majority to hold the meeting. The quorum will be reported on before the shareholders speak. A prestigious auditing firm has reviewed the compliance with the procedures of delegation, remote voting, and establishing the quorum applied by Iberdrola. And pending the final checks, these are in line with the corporate governance system and the rules for the board. The chairman and secretary of this board meeting are the chairman and secretary of the board of directors, with the presence of the directors. The announcement of the call, the proposed resolutions made by the board, the documents approved by the board, the information on the execution by the board of the resolutions previously adopted by the board, the amendments brought into the corporate governance system, and the rest of the information required by law or by the bylaws have been available on the corporate website since the call was published, and therefore they are considered as read. Also, as usual, we have adopted the necessary measures to comply with the regulations on data protection, privacy, in relation to the recording, storage, and audiovisual broadcasting simultaneously or in a deferred broadcast of the board meeting. As the chairman indicated, in order to facilitate the shareholders' right to ask questions and bring up issues at this meeting, together with the questions that the shareholders may put to the board directly, the Director of Relations with Investors will also channel your questions through the various communication channels, those that have been asked before the meeting, as well as any questions sent in during the meeting. The Director of Investor Relations is at the Shareholders Help Desk and will pass on the questions and without any unnecessary repetitions of questions. All those that wish to speak should give their names at the shareholders desk before we move on to the shareholders intervention, and if they want their written intervention.
So we have the right amount of social capital as required by the bylaws, and we can address the items included in the agenda. I would like to tell you that the Board of Directors has agreed to pay those shares that have not been included in the list of attendees because they joined at the later stage or because of other reasons that have nothing to do with the company or the shareholder, and they would only be taken into account for these purposes. But now, I'm now going to give the floor to the Director General for Business, Francisco Martinez Córcoles, who's going to be talking about the progression of our main operational parameters.
Muy buenos días. Constituye para mí una gran satisfacción.
It's a great satisfaction for me to speak to you all to report on the performance of the company's businesses last year. But I will begin by describing the business environment so as to provide a framework in the different countries in which we are operating. But firstly, I would like to underscore the evolution of demand, which is very weak in Europe, showing moderate but positive growth rates in the United States, Mexico, and Brazil. The commodities markets were characterized by a significant reduction in their main prices. So the average oil price fell by 9%, reaching $60 per barrel, whilst the average price of coal dropped by 8% to $75 per ton. CO2 stood at a value of €6 per ton, that is a 33% increase, although this trend was more due to regulatory impacts than to market fundamentals. And within this context, electricity and gas prices kept pace with the falling prices of commodities and registered falls when compared to those recorded in 2013. But moving on now to the main activities undertaken in 2014, in the networks business, the energy distributed by the group exceeded 214 million megawatts per hour, which is in line with the previous year, thanks to a slight increase in the United States and Brazil. And one of the most significant developments of the year was the improvement in the quality of service in all countries in which we operate. This has been even more notable in Spain, where record levels of quality have been achieved. And in Spain, we have forged ahead with a major investment milestone, that is the implementation of the STAR project by installing over 2 million smart meters. And this means that we now have a total of 4.5 million meters, which accounts for 43% of the final target. As regards regulation, work continues to establish a new remuneration framework for the distribution activity based on standard unit costs, which is expected to be conducted this year. In the UK, progress has been made in the transmission grid under the Rio 2-1 settlement defined through to 2021 to reinforce the interconnections between Scotland, Wales and England. Furthermore, in the last quarter of 2014, and after more than 12 months of negotiations with Ofgem, the new investment and remuneration framework for distribution has been defined. That will start in April this year and will remain in force until 2023. But I would like to highlight the major efforts undertaken both in the United Kingdom and the United States to improve the quality of service, despite some extremely adverse weather conditions, including heavy wind and snowstorms. And in particular, the quality metrics increased by 18% in the United Kingdom and 1% in the US. In Brazil, the long drought registered in the country since 2013 continues to affect the sector with very high generation costs. And I would like to underscore the important measures implemented by the government to limit the impact on distribution companies, such as the different financing mechanisms, the establishment of tariff flags and the recognition of regulatory assets, and the increase in the allowed cost of capital, which implies a better financial remuneration to the asset base. In addition, the government has made a very significant effort to pass to the consumers the real costs of supply. In the case of Electro, in August of 2014, the tariffs were updated and a 38% rise was reported. In February this year, an extraordinary tariff review for distribution company has been approved, applicable as of March the 2nd, resulting in a 24% increase for Electro. In the case of Neoenergia, the rise was lower because their exposure to non-manageable costs in 2015 is lower. So the approved increases were approximately 2% for Celpe, 3% for Cosern, and 5% for Coelba, roughly. But moving on now to the generation business, I would like to stress the fact that thanks to the commissioning of new facilities, the total capacity of the group has reached 45,000 megawatts, of which 62% are emission-free. Full year production reached 139 million megawatts hour, up nearly 2% compared to 2013, mainly due to the high hydro factor and also because there was a very good performance of our combined cycle plants in Mexico. So progress has continued to increase the availability of our generation facilities. And in this regard, I think that we must mention the greater availability of our nuclear power stations, 5%, in the case of coal-fired plants in the UK, 11%, and combined cycle plants in Mexico, 2%. But amongst the most significant investment milestones within the area of generation in Spain, work continues with the commissioning of the 850-megawatt La Muela 2 hydroelectric pumping station, which, together with La Muela 1, constitute the largest complex of its kind in Europe with nearly 1,500 megawatts. And we've also progressed in the expansion of the San Pedro 2 hydroelectric plant on the Sil River. In the UK, as occurred in Spain, we are adapting our mix. We have a much more efficient and emission-free mix, and we are replacing obsolete coal-fired plants, and we now have combined cycle and wind power, both onshore and offshore. And in this regard, I would like to say that we have completed west of Dutton Sands in the Irish Sea. This facility that has nearly 400 megawatts of capacity represents a major investment milestone for the company because apart from being Iberdrola's first offshore wind farm, it has been built and commissioned far ahead of schedule, which in 2014 has allowed us to increase production by 15% compared to the original estimates. And in German waters, in the Baltic Sea, work has commenced on the construction of Vikingar, our second offshore wind farm, which with a capacity of 350 megawatts is due to become operational in 2017. Furthermore, in the UK, where a large number of obsolete plants are to be closed down, capacity auctions have been launched to ensure sufficient backup power in the system, allowing efficient plants to maintain their availability and also encouraging the construction of new gas power plants whenever they are necessary for supply. The first auction was held in December 2014, and all the plants put forward by the Iberdrola Group were awarded contracts to be available as from October 2017 through September 2018, which will account for an annual revenue of around 50 million euros based on this concept. In the United States, we have completed the construction of the 200-megawatt Baffin wind farm. So this has increased our renewable installed capacity in this country, and it now stands at 5,700 megawatts and maintains our position as the second largest wind power operator in the country. In Mexico, the company's main growth driver in thermal generation, we have several major investments underway. In 2014, we completed the expansion of installed capacity at the Enerdec cogeneration plant, and work has begun to increase the capacity of Altamira 3 and 4 combined cycle plants thanks to improved efficiency in the facility's combustion system. In addition, construction work has begun for a number of new projects that are to be commissioned in 2016. Baja California 3 combined cycle plant of nearly 300 megawatts, whose energy will be sold to the Federal Electricity Commission. The fifth unit at Dulces Nombres, which is near Monterrey, which means another 300 megawatts that are going to be used to supply private customers, and the cogeneration plants of Kimberly Clark and Dynasol, ad hoc solutions for two of our main customers in that country, to whom we will supply both electricity and steam. And as regards renewables, work continues on the construction of the 64-megawatt Puebla and the 70-megawatt Dos Arbolitos wind farms, both of which will be commissioned this year. But to complete the review of the main generation investment milestones, in 2015, the Iberdrola Group took part in several renewable energy auctions held in Brazil and was awarded projects amounting to a capacity of 174 megawatts, which will all become operational between 2016 and 2017. As far as our retail activities are concerned, in 2014 our sales of electricity and gas to end customers were close to 122 million megawatts hour, of which a vast majority, 91%, had to do with the liberalized market. So energy sold in this market exceeded 110 million megawatts hour, 5% less than in 2013, as a result of two main reasons. On the one hand, lower residential unit consumption in Spain, and on the other, greater competition in the UK market, in which small suppliers have seen their share rise to over 10% of the residential sector. However, we should stress that the total number of contracts has increased 3%, exceeding 20 million, thanks to a 10% increase in Spain, a country where we now have something like 7 million contracts. But I would like to highlight the good results achieved in retail activities. And despite the tough environment with growing competition in prices, new agents and weak consumption, the Iberdrola Group has managed to improve its results, mainly thanks to the launch of new attractive products for our potential customers and a selective portfolio management. We have made a considerable effort to increase customer loyalty, expanding our presence in all channels in order to facilitate a fluent communication. In recent years, we have made a strong commitment to digitization, enabling us to combine the use of traditional channels, such as mail and telephone, with newer channels, such as text messages, the web, email, apps, and social networks. But apart from improving communication with more channels, the Iberdrola Group continues to upgrade its products to bring them closer to the needs of our customers, who seek competitive offers that allow them to save on their energy bills. To that end, we have launched a customized solutions campaign, advising our customers on how to use energy more efficiently and cost effectively. And we also have the fixed fee products, aimed at adapting energy bills to our customers' payment capacities and thus avoiding the volatility of market prices. But lastly, I would like to highlight other added value products which go beyond the supply of gas and electricity, and which are, for instance, electrical emergency assistance and home appliance protection. Work has also been undertaken to improve the quality of our customer service. In the UK, the implementation of a new retail IT system was concluded in 2014, and we've invested 270 million euros, and this will make procedures more agile, and it will improve our efficiency. And this new system will allow us to reduce customer service telephone response times and improve billing, which we expect will reduce complaints very significantly. But operating costs will also be optimized thanks to the lower cost of sales, a better utilization of resources, savings on systems maintenance, and a lower level of debt. So, dear shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude my address by underlining the relevance of health and safety and efficiency. In 2014, and continuing with our ongoing improvement, the number of occupational accidents has been reduced by 18% in the Iberdrola Group. We have an excellent level of occupational safety, and this includes our contractors, who are required to meet the exact standards as regards equipment, supervision and control. Safety is the top priority at Iberdrola, and this is why we are resolved to do as much as we possibly can to achieve our goal of 0 accidents. Thus, all areas of the company are working to improve the occupational risk prevention plan by incorporating new actions, as well as increasing and enhancing their dissemination in order to achieve a broader culture of prevention at all levels of the organization. Lastly, and as regards efficiency, our ongoing search for operational excellence has enabled us to become not only an international benchmark for the quality of our assets and employees, but also an example of operational efficiency in all the countries in which we conduct business. Let me stress, among the most relevant measures put in place, the implementation of best practices in all businesses, the revision of operational processes, the increasing implementation of smart meters, and the upgrade of retail systems. In 2015, we intend to continue along these lines of excellence, which will allow us to increase our competitiveness in all areas. Dear shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, as regards the future, you can be sure that we will continue to strive, as we have always done, to make sure that despite the changing environments which we live, we will continue to post good earnings for all of you. We will devote all of our efforts to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Paco.
Thank you very much, Paco. And now we're going to give the floor to the CFO, Mr. José Sainz Armada, and he's going to be talking about our results and about the financial situation of the company.
Egunon guztioi, buenos días, señores y señores.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll start off my presentation by analyzing the company's results in 2014. Gross margin rose by 3.4% to nearly 12.2 billion euros, thanks to the group's business model in a very difficult year, where recurring expenses were contained and increased by only 1.1%. As a result, operating expenses rose 2 points below the gross margin, with the efficiency ratio improving to 28.8%. And therefore, the EBITDA for the group rose 3% to 7 million euros. Regulated and contractual businesses account for 75% of the total, including the networks business, 51%, renewables, 19%, and our regulated generation business in Mexico, 5%, while the non-regulated generation and supply business accounts for 28%. The financial cost also improved, reduced 12.2%, driven by active management and an improved business climate, which has brought down the group's debt and its cost. Net profit totaled 2.3 billion, down 9.5% on 2013 as a result of a higher tax rate. 85% of the net profit comes from the group's regulated and contractual businesses, while 15% comes from the non-regulated generation and retail business. As regards financial management, Iberdrola ended the year 2014 with a very sound position, allowing it to face 2015 with no net financing needs. We could say that Iberdrola has emerged stronger from the crisis. Our balance sheet totaled 93.8 billion euros, with an increase of more than 3.9 billion euros in the tangible fixed assets, while boosting its financial strength with an increase of 500 million euros in the group's shareholders' equity and a 1.5 billion reduction in adjusted net debt to 25.3 billion euros. This figure comes very close to the 25 billion euro target that the group set for 2016 in its strategic plan presented in February last year. This debt reduction was achieved by cash flow generation close to 5.5 billion euros, the group's control of investments, mainly allocated to the regulated business and which totaled 2.85 billion in 2014, progress in our divestment program, which last year exceeded 1 billion euros, and also the collection of 1.6 billion euros from the tariff deficit that was owed to us. All this was accomplished while maintaining our shareholder remuneration commitments. Consequently, all the group's solvency ratios improved in 2014. In particular, the net debt EBITDA ratio improves from 4 to 3.6 times, also coming closer to the 3.5 times target set for 2016. And the group's debt ratio is strengthened to 41.3% in 2014, from the 43.2% recorded at the end of 2013. This has allowed the rating agencies to maintain or improve the credit rating for both the group and our subsidiaries, a trend that we expect to continue over the course of this year. The company has actively managed its financing. In particular, the bond issue for over 1.85 billion euros, including the first issuance of a green bond by a Spanish company, and the 7 billion euro reconfiguration of the syndicated credit facilities to bring it into line with the group's needs. As a result, Iberdrola has all of its financial needs covered for 2015, thanks to its strong liquidity position, which amounts to 9 billion and covers more than 30 months. The average debt maturity exceeds 6.3 years, with a comfortable maturity profile where more than half of the debt matures from 2020 onwards. Additionally, the situation of low interest rates in the Eurozone has enabled floating debt to be increased from 40 to nearly 60%. Which allowed the cost of debt to be reduced by 18 basis points to 4.35% from 4.53% in 2013. This trend will continue throughout 2015. The company continues to optimize the cost of debt in euros, accessing financing at a lower cost than the Spanish Treasury. The latest 8-year issuance was at 1.1% or 15 basis points below the Spanish Treasury at that time. However, the group's presence in other countries with high interest rates, such as Brazil, and the liquidity position means that the total group net debt cost is higher than financing in euros. Exchange rate risk management is also an essential part of the group's financial strategy, since more than 50% of the EBITDA is generated outside the Eurozone. Our risk management aims to protect the group's solvency, obtaining financing in the currency in which we generate our cash flow and earnings. We adjust the weight of debt in foreign currency to the percentage of earnings in that currency, thus reducing the risk for the group of undesired fluctuations in foreign currency and therefore protecting the income statement. In addition to what I've already said, Iberdrola purchases products and services excluding fuel amounting to more than 5.4 billion euros through a management model that enables it to have diversified suppliers, over 18,300, 90% of them classified according to the main sustainability standards. Suppliers to whom a multinational group as powerful as Iberdrola provides global opportunities that go beyond their local markets, while generating efficiencies for the group that have brought down the unit cost of purchases by more than 10% in the last year. The model for managing the nearly 30,000 men and women who work at Iberdrola, mainly in Spain, United Kingdom, United States, Mexico, and Brazil, is based on efficiency and best practices. The company is a world leader providing measures to help reconcile personal, family, and working life. The management model is global, but taken into account local features and needs, with ongoing training for 90% of the workforce, both technical and on occupational risks, because our goal is maximum occupational health and safety, and in which talent management, regardless of gender, plays a key role in the group's future as we strive to foster development opportunities both locally and internationally, while providing stable and quality employment, since 98% of the contracts are permanent contracts. The group's global IT management model supports business management, helping to fulfill the requirements established by regulatory bodies in each country, improving service quality, efficiency, standardization, and development of new technologies. The main IT projects at the moment are focused on the systems that support the deployment of smart meters, construction work maintenance and management, regulatory reporting and customer management. Corporate function management also has common process management systems that standardizes operations and provides service around the world, allowing efficiency to be generated. The deployment of a new treasury management model and a global human resources management model in the group are worth noting. Service and office space management across the group generates efficiencies and improves quality through office space rationalization and best practices based on new technologies and on energy and environmental efficiency. Worth mentioning is the construction of the new Scottish Power headquarters in Glasgow, which will bring together several UK sites under one modern and efficient building, and the Iberdrola campus in Saustín de Guadalix, which will give all the group's employees training at one single centre. To conclude, active management of our financing, reducing the group's financial costs, and optimization of our resources to achieve more efficient use and management will be the levers to improve results for this and coming years, to which we will devote all our efforts. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Pepe, for your presentation.
Un año más.
As every year, I have the satisfaction of addressing you today at this general shareholders meeting that's taking place at the Palacio Euskalduna in Bilbao, held as part of the Shareholder Day. And I'm doing so with the same enthusiasm which I did for the first time, having seen the in-depth transformation that our company has gone through these past years to become one of the world's top utilities. Our company's recent history is a history of growth and anticipation, which in the past decade has enabled us to carry out an unprecedented international expansion. We've multiplied our assets nearly fourfold. We've increased our revenue more than threefold, and we've doubled our results, whilst we've multiplied by 2.5 times the remuneration amount to all of you, dear shareholders. And we have done so while maintaining our financial soundness, because the strength of business ventures and the way they are managed are best measured in difficult times. And the solidity of this company has become more than evident in recent years, during which, despite a complex environment, we have been able to stand here before you with the satisfaction of having achieved our targets, and we've also fulfilled our commitment as regards offering you a sustained and sustainable remuneration. And so we did the previous year, delivering results above our estimates, which has allowed us to distribute a remuneration of 0.27 euros per share, as we had promised. And this is the reason that makes us believe that these Basque entrepreneurs who founded this company at the beginning of last century would be proud today of what we have all achieved together. We've given continuity to their project and made it global. We've handed it down from generation to generation without losing its essence. We've made it stronger throughout the years. And we've increased the long-term focus of our business model, which is able not only to deliver economic results, but also, as we shall see later, to bring progress and well-being to our society by promoting industrial development through purchases, investments, and job creation to offer high-quality energy supply while caring for the environment.
A lo largo de 2014.
Throughout 2014, economic recovery has consolidated in our main markets with growth rates that exceed 2% and employment rates that had never been achieved in the United Kingdom, the United States or Mexico. Meanwhile, Brazil has experienced a slight deceleration with GDP growing by only 0.1%. In Spain, as I already anticipated 2 years ago before this assembly, our economy started to grow in the second half of 2013. And in a consolidated manner in 2014, with a growth of 1.4% at the end of the year. For 2015, most institutions forecast an increase that is close to 3%. But thanks to the joint efforts made by employers and workers and to the structural reforms carried out, Spain today is growing and is creating jobs. It is seen as a country that fulfills its commitments. And markets and international institutions consider this country as an example of recovery and an attractive destination for investments. This year, some of the countries where we are operating will hold general elections. And despite the uncertainty that this may undoubtedly generate, financial markets are confident that stable governments will be established. And this would allow to continue attracting the necessary investment to maintain the current path of economic growth and job creation. As a result of global economic growth, the world will need a more abundant and better energy supply in the future. According to the International Energy Agency, in the next 25 years, world electricity demand is expected to increase by 80%. Not only driven by the high efficiency of this source of power, but also by the extension of electricity supplies to 1.3 billion people that have no access to electricity worldwide. And this will require investments worth $20 trillion. This scenario offers major opportunities for our sector, which has the necessary resources and appropriate technology to deal with this increase in demand in a reliable, sustainable and competitive manner. And in this regard, the World Economic Forum's Energy Utilities Community, which I chair, has carried out the report, The Future of Electricity, setting out the conditions for these investments to be attractive. For instance, lawmakers must create stable and predictable policy frameworks that provide sufficient incentives. Regulators must also send positive signals to the markets and minimize interventionism, thus creating a level playing field. And moreover, it is necessary to establish arrangements to push a high economic effort in innovation. A good example of this is the energy reform launched in Mexico by President Peña Nieto, aimed at achieving a more efficient and sustainable energy supply and also attracting private investments to the energy sector thanks to the market liberalization in generation and retail activities. And also in Brazil, the regulatory framework developed is allowing to mitigate the drought impact and the subsequent increase in energy procurement costs for distribution companies. Meanwhile, in the States, new rate arrangements have been approved for our distribution and transmission businesses in the state of Maine. And throughout 2015, the procedure for filing the rate cases to be applied in 2016 in our electricity and gas businesses in New York will begin. And as regards the renewables business, the so-called PTCs were extended for projects until the end of 2016. In the United Kingdom, the regulatory and remuneration frameworks approved for the transmission and distribution activities ensure visibility and stability in these businesses until 2023. On the other hand, and as part of the electricity market reforms implemented to promote investments in low-carbon technologies, the first contract for differences auction for renewables facilities in the United Kingdom took place in February. Our East Anglia 1 offshore wind project, to which I will refer later, was awarded one of these contracts. Furthermore, last December, all our operational stations were successful in the first capacity market auction, aimed at ensuring the availability of power plants. In Spain, last December, the tariff deficit accumulated until 2013 was settled, and with this, coupled with fiscal and regulatory measures undertaken by the government since 2012, we expect that future structural tariff tariff deficit will be solved. In the European Union, energy has become a top priority in the new Commission's agenda. And in that sense, the new European Commission has brought together the climate action and energy portfolios led by the Spaniard Mr. Arias Cañete, and has created a vice presidency of the Energy Union with the objective of addressing the energy challenges of reaching a secure, sustainable and competitive energy supply. The EU has taken the first steps forward with the establishment of the target of reducing emissions by 40% in 2030 when compared with the 1990 levels. And for this purpose, the EU emissions trading system will be strengthened in order to guarantee a proper functioning. In addition, a market stability reserve will be created with the aim of setting a carbon price at an adequate level to foster technological change and deliver the emission reduction objectives. But in this regard, and given Europe's leadership role at the climate conference, which will take place in Paris at the end of this year, we hope that the new adopted agreement will contribute to a cleaner world for future generations. On February the 25th, the European Commission released its fundamental guidelines for the development of the Energy Union, which are based on 5 major principles: ensuring energy security through the diversification of energy sources and routes, decarbonizing the economy, promoting energy efficiency, boosting innovation, and finally, reaching an internal energy market to ensure affordable prices by increasing interconnections and laying the foundations for a convergence of member states' energy policies by minimizing public intervention and ensuring a greater transparency and homogeneity in the composition of energy prices, both with regards to taxation and public support costs. The European Commission is aware that unless decisions are taken in this regard, European economy will be put at a competitive disadvantage vis-à-vis other economies like the US, because although intrinsic costs of electricity supplies have fallen in Europe in past years, final electricity tariffs have increased due to the addition of environmental, social and fiscal costs that are not related to electricity supply, because they nearly account for 40% in Europe of the tariff, and in Spain it's nearly 60% of the tariff. And in this context, we have continued to make efforts in optimizing the entire group's operational financial management in order to continue advancing in the fulfillment of the objectives set for 2016, which, as we noticed at the previous shareholders' meetings, are based on investments, well, the allocation of over 80% of investments to have to go to regulated businesses in our geographical areas. We have to increase our operational efficiency, and we need to have an even greater financial strength with an improvement of the financial ratios in order to guarantee a sustainable remuneration policy to all of you, dear shareholders. All of these lines of action have been accomplished in the past year, which allowed us to deliver results even above our estimates. Accordingly, our EBITDA stood at 6.9 million euros and our net profits totaled 2.327 billion euros. And this has been possible thanks to our cost reduction efforts and the results coming from our international investments that have allowed us to mitigate the impact of the painful regulatory measures that were adopted in Spain. And at the same time, we've reduced net debt by nearly 1.5 billion euros, and we're very close to our objective for 2016, and as a consequence, the net debt to EBITDA ratio has improved by 10%. And these results confirm the company's good performance and enable the board of directors to propose to the shareholders' meeting a gross shareholder remuneration of 0.27 euros per share. Hence, to the 0.127 euros that were already paid out last December, in July we will add on 0.0143 euros per share, to which we have to add on an attendance premium of 0.005 euros gross to all the shareholders that are present in person or those by proxy. It gives me a great satisfaction to inform you that the total shareholder return, including dividends plus share price increase, delivered by Iberdrola in 2014 reached 30.1%. Far ahead of our main European competitors and main reference indices such as Euro Stock Utilities or IBEX 35. Moreover, to date, Our share price has increased by 8%, and a large part of the financial analysts estimate that our share price still offers a significant upside potential. Dear shareholders, as far as the future is concerned, our intention is to continue expanding our activities by focusing our investments in countries which offer growth opportunities and enjoy predictable and stable regulatory frameworks. In the UK, we will invest in electricity networks, following the agreements reached with the regulator regarding the distribution and high-voltage transmission frameworks, with a total investment allowance of €8.3 billion until 2023. And amongst the most relevant projects, it is worth highlighting the 600,000-volt subsea HVDC interconnection between Scotland and Wales, still under construction, which will involve investments worth €1.4 billion, and it will be the longest of its kind in the world in 2017. And following the commissioning in 2014 of our first offshore wind power plant west of Duddon Sands in the Irish Sea, with an investment of nearly €1 billion, and the start of construction work of the Wikinger wind farm, located in the German waters of the Baltic Sea, which will be fully commissioned in 2017 after a total investment of €1.4 billion. We have won, as I already mentioned, the British government auction for the construction and operation of a new offshore wind farm, East Anglia 1, located in the North Sea. This wind farm, whose construction will start at the end of 2016 and is scheduled to be commissioned in 2018, will require investments worth approximately €2.8 billion. So all in all, the group's offshore installed capacity will then amount to 1,300 megawatts, 1,300 megawatts. In Mexico, we are taking advantage of the new growth opportunities provided by the new energy reform, and we're progressing in the construction of 2 combined cycles and 2 new cogeneration plants, besides the recent upgrades work of a 3rd facility. And in this country, where we already have several wind farms in operation, we also have another 2 under construction and a project portfolio of nearly 900 megawatts for the next decade. So overall, the investments underway in Mexico are very close to €1 billion. In Brazil, we are still developing our distribution networks through Electro and No Energia in order to meet the increasing demand for electricity. And after having finalized this year the construction of Telepides and Velomonte and Baixo Iguaçu, and totaling 1,800 megawatts. Moreover, we are starting construction work for 6 additional wind farms, which in the coming years will add up to the 11 facilities that we operate. All this will require total investment worth €800 million for the group. In Spain, we are progressing in the rollout of smart grids and smart meters, with a total investment over the next few years of €2 billion. So this is allowing us to continue improving our efficiency and the quality of our service, which in 2014 was the best in our history. In the United States, and after finalizing the construction of the main line that I mentioned at the previous meeting, with an investment of €1 billion, we are continuing with the rollout of smart grids and smart meters. And we are also developing through our subsidiaries, New York State Electric and Gas and Rochester and Electric, a new transmission project to extend the New York transmission system with a contribution of nearly $200 million until 2018. In renewables, we've finished the construction of the 200-megawatt Baffin wind farm, and we have also qualified 900 megawatts of new projects to be built until 2016. In addition, our solar plants in Arizona and Colorado, which were recently commissioned, have been producing at full capacity throughout the year. But let me now talk to you about a new corporate merger agreement reached on February the 25th by our sub-holding society in the United States and the North American company UIL Holdings Corporation, with operations in the regulated businesses of transmission and distribution of electricity and gas in Connecticut and Massachusetts. Once the transaction is completed, the resulting company, of which Iberdrola will own a stake of more than 81.5%, will become one of the largest utilities with network assets in the United States. And just to give you some data, the assets will be something like $31 billion, gross operating income, EBITDA, of approximately $2 billion and net income of 570 million, 6,784 megawatts of installed capacity, and this will serve a population of nearly 10 million people throughout 3.1 million points of supply. And with electricity and gas infrastructures in the states of New York, Connecticut, Maine, and Massachusetts, also providing electricity generation and gas storage in another 20 North American states. So the ongoing merger improves the group's geographical footprint in this country and increases the contribution of regulated business. It's in dollars. It generates value for the group because it's not dilutive and allows us to maintain our financial strength. The merged company might, in the future, contribute approximately 30% to the group results.
Hablando ya del ejercicio actual.
But focusing now on the current year, an improved scenario, together with ongoing efforts to optimize operational and financial management, as well as the good progress of the projects I have already reported, allow us to be optimistic, although we are still in the first half of the year. And if our expectations materialize, we expect that both gross operating income and net profit will exceed those figures reported in the previous year, which will allow us to maintain a shareholder remuneration of at least 0.27 euros per share.
Señoras y señores accionistas.
Dear shareholders, I would now like to mention the updates with regard to corporate governance that have happened the last year and the new initiatives underway in this field. As you already know, the promotion of good governance is and has been one of Iberdrola's hallmarks. The Board of Directors continues fully committed to its development, strengthening and ongoing improvement, as well as to its alignment with best international practices. This effort has been recognized by prestigious organizations worldwide because in 2014, Iberdrola received the World Finance Corporate Governance Award for the best corporate governance among Spanish companies. And this year, we have received the Ethical Boardroom Corporate Governance Award, recognizing our company as the European utility that develops best practices in this field. But above all, dear shareholders, throughout all these years, we have received your endorsement and support. So thank you very much for that. And in this respect, I must now allude to two resolutions of the Supreme Court that have terminated the legal challenges initiated by Residential Monte Carmelo, which belongs to the ACS group, against the resolutions adopted at the General Shareholders meetings in 2010 and 2011. All of you are familiar with these rulings because in the application of the criterion of maximum transparency that guides all of our actions, they were immediately communicated. And the decisions, which declared void only 4 out of the 66 amendments of the 2011 Shareholders meeting bylaws and ruling out the claimant's request with regards to the 2010 General Shareholders meeting, were included in the bylaws and General Shareholders meeting regulations published on the corporate website, having also been taken into account in the reform we are proposing to you today.
Esta ambiciosa reforma.
And this ambitious reform that takes into account the most recent updates in legislation aims, among other things, at reinforcing the figure of shareholders as the cornerstone of the company's corporate governance, whilst fostering their involvement and reinforcing their rights. And all of this in line with the shareholder engagement policy approved by Iberdrola's Board of Directors in February, following the assessment carried out by a working group composed of companies' representatives, outstanding European shareholders associations, and qualified and experienced professionals in corporate governance. And this policy constitutes a new landmark in the development of the framework of relations between Iberdrola and its shareholders. All of these actions reflect Iberdrola's vision regarding corporate interest, which brings together the principle of sustainability and the company's vocation to generate a long-term value for all of its shareholders, and also takes into account the other stakeholders linked to its business and institutional activities, including its employees and the communities and territories where it operates. Therefore, and faithful to the project we presented last year, we are very proud to hold this general shareholders meeting within the framework of the Shareholder Day, a pioneering initiative that intends to bring you all closer to the business, social and institutional reality of Iberdrola, promoting a two-way interaction between the company shareholders and fostering your involvement in the company's life. Finally, with regard to the Board of Directors, it gives me great satisfaction to say that we are the company with the largest number of women in its board amongst the large IBEX 35 corporations, and the 4 committees of the board are chaired by women, one of which is our lead independent director, who, by the way, is from Bilbao. On the other hand, our directors have 7 different nationalities, and 80% of them are independent. So this ongoing work, together with our position at the forefront of corporate governance, allow us to comply with all the recommendations included in the Unified Good Governance Code for listed companies for 2014, with only 2 exceptions regarding the limitation on voting rights, because we understand it is the best way to protect all of you, Iberdrola shareholders, against investors that may want to take control of the company without launching a takeover bid for the entire capital, and the recommendation relative to the breakdown of the Executive Committee being similar to that of the Board of Directors, whose enforcement is technically unfeasible due to its reduced dimensions. So 1 year in advance, we are already in compliance with almost all of the 64 recommendations, included a new good governance code approved less than 2 months ago by the National Securities Market Commission. So this position at the forefront also applies to our compliance system, designed to prevent, detect and react to any improper conduct, fraud or acts contrary to the Code of Ethics. In recent months, we have intensified even more our dissemination campaigns with our employees, having been recognized internationally with the annual Compliance Awards and recently with the Women in Compliance Awards for our work in this field. Moreover, we have been selected by the Ethisphere Institute for the 2nd year running as one of the world's most ethical companies, and the only Spanish firm among the 132 companies on the list. Dear shareholders, today, more than ever, Iberdrola reaffirms its commitment to society, to general interest and people's real needs. Committed to the present time and deeply embedded in today's society. So, in this spirit, we are maximizing our social and economic contribution to the communities where we are present. And we do so carrying out or making annual investments worth €3 billion through annual purchases over €5.4 billion to more than 18,000 suppliers by improving the quality of service and offering innovative solutions to our customers, providing 350,000 direct and indirect and induced jobs around the world, according to a report published by a prestigious economic research institute, and contributing €5.5 billion to public finances through tax payments, including own taxes and those collected from third parties. And in this sense, the company's direct fiscal contribution accounts for half of our profits before taxes and levies. In addition, and according to the estimates of the institute that I just mentioned, our activities generate another €5 billion in tax contribution. So that means that our total fiscal contribution worldwide amounts to more than €10.5 billion. As regards our main asset, Iberdrola's human capital, on average, we have provided our employees with more than 40 hours of training during the year. We've carried out nearly 2,300 internal promotions and have fostered international mobility with the transfer of more than 200 employees, thus favoring the exchange of best practices and knowledge. And in the last decade, we multiplied by 4 the percentage of women in our workforce, many of whom hold senior executive roles, and we also have specific plans to continue along this path. We've also multiplied by 4 the number of hired graduates, allowing us to rejuvenate our human capital, and we have boosted work-life balance measures, having been certified as a family responsible company. The results of the latest employment climate survey reflects high levels of pride, of belonging and satisfaction, and our company has been recognized as one of the best places to work. Because at Iberdrola, we fully support the future of new generations, their education and their professional development. Last year, we hired 1,800 new employees and also 700 apprentices. At the same time, we have continued developing our scholarships program for master and PhD studies at international universities for youngsters in our main countries where we operate, which will reach 400 recipients in 2015. So as a responsible and sustainable company, innovation, care for the environment and biodiversity are at the core of Iberdrola's strategy and decision-making. Thus, we have allocated 170 million euros to research, development and innovation, mainly related to smart grids, clean generation or offshore wind power. We are, as of today, the most innovative Spanish utility according to the European Commission. Likewise, we have continued protecting the environment and contributing to the fight against climate change, as shown by the fact that almost two-thirds of our installed capacity are free of CO2 emissions. But I would like to underscore that our emissions per kilowatt are already 30% lower than European electricity average, and the company has set targets to further reduce emissions by 30% by 2020. And we also want to become carbon neutral by 2050. In the field of biodiversity, apart from minimizing the environmental impact of our facilities, we've also been involved in several initiatives like the Cantabrian Capercaillie Protection Scheme in Spain, the conservation and improvement of the Trossachs National Park in the UK, and a program to preserve the Hudson River in the United States. Additionally, we have continued with our support for the arts and culture through numerous and different projects, in particular the Atlantic Romanesque Restoration Plan, for the restoration of 16 churches in Spain and Portugal, the support for the Binghamton Philharmonic Orchestra in the United States, the sponsorship of the National Theatre of Scotland, and the creation of the Iberdrola Corporate Art Collection, which has been recently awarded the Fundación Arco Prize. And last year you had the opportunity to visit a selection of this collection in Bilbao, and today this is on display in Valladolid and can be seen in Madrid. Moving on to the area of social action, in Spain we have developed a social aid program which has allowed us to improve the quality of life for almost 80,000 people in a vulnerable situation, and we sponsor the Spanish Paralympic sailing team. In the States, we participate at the food distribution program called Backpack. In the United Kingdom, we are collaborating with the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, giving our support to youth employment. In Brazil, we are taking part in initiatives such as the Escola de Electricistas to help young people at risk of social exclusion. And in Mexico, we have a plan for the refurbishment of primary schools. Moreover, and I feel very proud, because 1,300 employees of the group have participated in the corporate volunteer program, sacrificing their free time and holidays. And thanks to our employees' solidarity and to the resources allocated by the company, the program directly or indirectly has helped nearly 500,000 people. Finally, I would like to point out that in 2014, we launched the Electricity for All program to promote universal access to electricity in emerging and developing countries. And as part of this program, several initiatives have been put into place in Brazil, Rwanda and Ethiopia. And thanks to the company's vision and its commitment towards sustainability, Iberdrola has become a reference in indexes such as FTSE4 Good, OCOM Carbon Disclosure or Dow Jones Sustainability, and it's the only utility included in the latter since its creation 14 years ago. Moreover, last year we received the Responsible Capitalism Award 2014, which I had the honour to collect in London. It was presented to me by the Leader of the House of Commons, Mr. William Hague, at the Foreign Office in London. And this acknowledgement adds to the honorary award of Commander of the Order of the British Empire that it received from Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II last year. And to conclude, one more year, I want to emphasize the excellent work that has been done by all of the women and men who make up our group worldwide. And let me thank all of them for their commitment, dedication, and devotion to this project that we all share. Similarly, I am also grateful for the constructive attitude of the trade union representatives in all the countries where we operate, which once again has been a determining factor in 2014 and will for sure continue to be so in the future. And naturally, I would also like to thank the entire management team. Without their dedication and commitment, we had not have been able to present the results we are talking about at this general shareholders meeting. And of course, my personal gratitude to each and every one of the members on the board of directors for their direction, help and constant support, and for the crucial work they perform in the different commissions of the board and which are essential for the company. My sincere gratitude to all of them, and very especially to Julio de Miguel y Sebastián Martinet, who've retired from the board this year after more than a decade of hard work, during which they have been key participants in the outstanding development of the company. In addition, I would like to welcome the new board members, Manuel Moreo and J.W. Fernandez, who I am certain will contribute to Iberdrola with their extensive experience and knowledge. Dear shareholders, as you have seen, Iberdrola is based on profound values such as transparency, ethics, integrity, responsibility, and effort. It is a modern company open to dialogue, gathering talent from all over the world, and which has always integrated companies in a friendly manner and continues to do so. A company committed to employment, entrepreneurship, and young people where women can find a great professional future. A company committed to the most disadvantaged groups and to promoting social inclusion. A company that continuously boosts creativity and innovation to address our sector's complex challenges. A company that protects the environment and biodiversity because we want our children and our children's children to be able to enjoy this world the same way that we do. Because, above all, people are behind Iberdrola, the more than 100 million to whom we provide service, our more than 30,000 employees and more than 350,000 people that work for us, our 18,000 suppliers, and, of course, all of you, our shareholders, more than 600,000 worldwide, for whom we are creating a sustainable value year after year. So these are the main landmarks of Iberdrola. These are the landmarks of your company, the company of your families, a company that we all feel extremely proud of. A company to which we dedicate all our efforts and enthusiasm, a company we feel passionate about and to which we are bound by strong and solid ties. Your trust and support give us the necessary energy and strength to move forward and to continue building a competitive and sustainable energy future, and, of course, to continue creating value for all of you, being aware of our crucial role as an engine for economic and social development, because we have not enough with what has been achieved. We want to go even further. We have a successful project, and we will continue developing and sharing it with all of you. Thank you very much for your attention. Eskerrik asko.
A continuación, cedo la palabra al secretario.
And now I'm going to give the floor to the Secretary so that he can give us the details regarding the quorum.
The share capital today amounts to €4,791,362,250 and is represented by 6,388,483,000 ordinary shares, all of them with a nominal value of 75 cents and belonging to a single class and series. At the meeting, we have a total of 181,523 shareholders holding 5,233,273,000 shares, which represent 78% of the share capital. Of these shareholders, a total of 13,675 holding 138,353,500 shares, representing 21.61% of the share capital, are present, and a total of 167,484 holders of 3,604,022,023 shares, which represent 57.04% of the share capital. The company treasury stock amounts to 148,100,000 shares and represents 2.32% of the share capital, has been included in the calculation of the necessary percentages for the constitution and adoption of resolutions, although according to law, the voting rights for these shares are suspended.
Thank you very much. And we've dealt with all the issues that were included on the agenda. I'm going to give the floor to the notary now.
In compliance with Article 101.3 of the Business Register regulations, I must put the following question to this meeting. Does any shareholder wish to express any reservations or objections regarding the number of shareholders present and the capital represented? There are none.
We're now going to move on to the discussion, and the Secretary is going to provide the necessary instructions.
Ignacio Galán has the floor to convey the questions or thoughts put forward by the shareholders. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to read the questions that have been sent to us through the usual channels. Our website, through the online shareholders channel, and through the numerous meetings we hold with pension funds, mutual funds, or thematic funds, such as the corporate social responsibility funds during the year. I would also like to say that in order to avoid repetitions, we've grouped the questions together by themes and by order of importance based on the number of questions sent in on these various issues. I would also like to point out that my intervention does not change the shareholders' right to ask questions once my intervention is over. I'd like to move on to the first section now, which is the star of everything you're asking about. And this is the dividend sustainability, the amount, the payment dates, etc. The second block of questions are recent questions related to the format of the Shareholders' Day we've held today, and why has this change been made versus the traditional shareholders' meeting, and the way it's done by other companies. The third section is related to our investments and growth, and first of all, and after the proposal of the merger with the U.S. company UL, the shareholders ask if we have changed our geographic focus. In other words, if it's still the Atlantic arc, which is the objective for our expansion in the future. And we also have questions on Mexico and all the opportunities that the energy reform brings, which has started to be applied in this country, and also the reason for the success of Iberdrola since the beginning of this century in this Latin American country. The fifth block of sections refers to our objectives, our strategic plan. The plan 2014-2016, and specifically how we're doing in the compliance of these goals that were set down last year for the year 2016. The second block of questions has to do with the new electric technologies, and I would like to point out that this question is a hefty question because it was asked by a North American fund manager based in Boston. And it's a tough question. They ask how much electricity we would need to produce to satisfy the electricity demand if all world vehicles became electric vehicles. And of course, when they ask me the question, I couldn't give an answer. A question on the future of our industry, where utility companies will be going in the next decade, specifically in Europe. And the final block of questions, here we can see that certain news is not shared by some of our shareholders, including the statement that big corporations practically pay no taxes in Spain, which you already referred to in your speech. And basically they have asked how much Iberdrola pays in taxes overall in our country. Additionally, and this would put the end to my block of questions, I have received from Mr. Valeriano Álvarez López from León, who's been living in Bilbao for over 50 years. And I have received a couple of questions from him, and he has called himself a minor shareholder. But, Valeriano, we don't have minor, intermediate, or major shareholders. We just have shareholders. And as a shareholder, Valeriano would like to know, first of all, if it's possible for shareholders to enjoy a discount in the electricity tariff, and if possible, could shareholder relatives have a priority when it comes to being employed by our company? And that brings me to the end of my block of questions. Thank you very much, Ignacio. We are now going to call the shareholders that have asked to put questions. Ms. Julia Sudro has the floor.
Estimados miembros del Consejo.
Dear members of the board, Mr. Chairman, my name is Julia and I am a lawyer. I work in Germany and I represent the group of shareholders in that country. And I have a question for all of you. I'm not just an investor, I'm also a shareholder. And I'm talking about the parity of action, which last year set up an exchange platform with the board, looking into gender equality issues in the business environment. And then secondly, we also have funding by the European Commission this year, and I'm talking about the European Women Shareholders Demanding Equality. We are going to be involved in all of the different shareholders meetings of the companies on the Eurostoxx market in order to foster and to demand equality between the genders in all our companies. We have received your answers of a questionnaire that was sent you, which has failed to provide us with the information we wanted about the presence of women at different corporate levels in your company. It's also a questionnaire about the courses that you run in order to foster equal opportunities in your company. After reading your responses, we've had to change our initial discourse. And as I said before, we've had to change, and we have to congratulate you as a result of this. Those of us working on these initiatives are jurists, we're legal experts, and we are lawyers. And our obligation is to carefully analyze all the different answers that are received. We know that you have carried out a lot of improvements, and even though there's a lot of work yet to be done, we would like to congratulate you, but then offer the following suggestions. We've seen that the presence of women is increasing in the board of directors, and we hope that there will be an equal number of men and women before too long. But underneath that level, there are just over 5% of women executives in the company. And we believe that this figure should be higher. It should be higher because you have enough highly qualified women in your company, not just with technical knowledge, but also with experts in company management, economic issues, human resources, marketing, etc., etc. We would like to remind you that there are many more female students in business study schools and who carry on to study postgraduate courses as well. So we therefore believe that you have a large pool of potential female employees from which to choose from, and we would hope that you will do that in the future in order to ensure a better gender balance. I would also like to appeal to your corporate social responsibility and the fact that companies should have an impact on how society develops, as you have so rightly said in your presentations. I believe that Iberdrola is a main driver in promoting gender diversity and many other areas of society. We would also like to say that you need to make sure that you continue to do that, and you also do it internally, and also with regard to your suppliers and the companies in which you have a shareholding. Obviously, we would like to say that it's not right that there should be only 10% of women in the board of directors in some of the companies in which you hold a shareholding. I would like to say something to the shareholders here, and we would like to invite them to join in our initiative and to join our cause. Do you believe that it's a good commercial decision to put women in commercial leadership positions? That is my question. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, doña Julia.
Thank you very much. Héctor Mendal Escario has the floor.
Buenos días. Acudo a esta junta de...
Good morning. I come to this shareholders meeting representing Adikai, Iberdrola minority shareholders, and Adikai actively participates at the shareholders meetings with the legitimacy we have since we belong to the consulting board of CNMV and the European group BB Finance that defends the interests of shareholders all over the European Union. Today, we would like to completely disagree on Iberdrola's policies, which consists in the board taking the minor shareholders' vote by paying a premium of 0.005 cents per share. This is legal, but it's an abuse as Iberdrola does it, since shareholders have the possibility of delegating their vote to anybody, and they could therefore still collect the premium. But the announcements clearly are confusing. We are also surprised that you don't want to put such an important issue, such as the issuing of hybrid financial products, to the assessment of the board. At Adikai, we will, of course, continue to watch over these complex products to make sure that they are not sold to conservative profile investors, as has been done in the past. And regarding the job done by the board, we're not going to comment on that. But the drop of 9.5% in profits compared to last year, which you blame on the higher tax rates as a result of the regulatory reforms, shouldn't be offset by an increase in the price of electricity, with an increase of 38% of the cost of energy on the market. Electricity is an essential good, which is expensive enough for it to continue to go up in price, or to condition the price increase to the implementation of energy efficiency measures at people's homes when people have difficulties in paying the bill. Regarding Ernst Young as accounts auditor, we're not going to comment, but we hope that the auditors will not be perpetuated in the services they provide to Iberdrola, since it has been proved that this makes them more liable to suffer situations that lead to conflicts of interest and move away from the independence and objectiveness that should rule over their interventions. Regarding the board, we are against the renewal, but we're not against the directors in general, but against the re-election of Ángel Jesús Acebes Paniagua. And we are firmly against because of his lack of knowledge of the business, and since he's been charged for responsibilities at Bankia, where he was in the same area of responsibility, and his involvement with the famous Bárcenas papers. The appointment of the current chairman of Iberdrola after so many years, we believe, contravenes the fundamental principles of good corporate governance. And also, in general, people that have been sitting on the same board for years from the dominant groups can hardly be independent and defend the interests of the small shareholders, and even more so when they have held positions that have much more to do with executive positions. However, we feel that the example of the last two directors' appointments should be used, since at least they are experts in the energy field. Regarding the annual report on director remunerations, we are against the increase of 22% in the salary of the chairman, especially if we bear in mind that dividends are being maintained at the same levels for shareholders. And since Adikai also represents consumers, we want to take this opportunity to highlight some malpractices at Iberdrola that we would like to cease immediately. And we have to remember that this means that Iberdrola concentrates half of all its electricity complaints before the competition board. And this includes inviting customers to contract the flat rate without advising them that the final amount will be higher. And the extensive practice of taking the customers from the regulated market to the free market without customer authorization. And we have thousands of complaints in Spain. Also, the use of salespeople on commission, which sometimes try to cheat the customers, and also how people that find it difficult to pay the bill are treated. The Iberdrola shuts off electricity supply without meeting the legal requirements in Spain. And you mentioned some rulings. There's a firm ruling from the High Court, $20 million to be paid to Hidre Cantábrico for denying them access to the electric grid. And finally, the bad practice of the fines for manipulating meters. And at Adicai, we are considering a collective suit. Don't you think that this all has a repercussion on the shareholders? We do, and in a very negative way. Thank you very much. Adolfo Torres Menéndez has the floor.
Señor presidente, señores consejeros.
Mr. Chairman, directors, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, I would like to greet you all. But in principle, I'm going to try to be very brief in my words, regardless of the fact that I had an extensive program here to discuss with you. But in any case, I'm going to go straight to the point, and I don't want to bore you, because I would like to meet up with you personally, Mr. Chairman, in Madrid if possible. And there I'd explain the reasons I would like to discuss with you relative to the company and its interests. And then what I would like to say is that I feel very proud of belonging to this company and also of investing my money. And both my children and myself are all shareholders. And now my son is unemployed. He lives in the Canary Islands, and I'm afraid that he had to sell his shares. And this is something that should also have to consider situations of this kind. But I would like to say something about all the people that work for the company. I would like to say that you are an example in the way you're working at this company. You know that I worked for the company for 50 years. I'm one of those people, I'm one of those gentlemen, and I think I deserve that title, that started off like the pioneers in those little scrapyards, so to speak, which soon became obsolete. And fortunately, thanks to wonderful people like Mr. Oriol and like Mr. Ignacio, like the people we have nowadays on the team, we can talk about the best companies. I'm talking not about a large company, I'm talking about the best company in terms of its wonderful services. And all of this due to the fact that from the highest ranking person to the person at the bottom of the scale, I know that you are like a mirror where we can see our friends. We are all, and I include myself on the list because I consider myself to be a company worker. We, I think, are offering a wonderful example, and I'm sure that the rest of the workforce agrees with this. And Mr. Chairman, Mr. Directors, we are where we stand because we have a wonderful team. Well, this is something I mentioned to Mr. Oriol, who always spoke to me at the end of the shareholders meetings when they used to take place in Madrid. And I think it was the second encyclical of John 23rd, who said that the proper running of a company is a company where capital must notice or must know that workers were absolutely essential, because without workers there's no company. But workers also have to recognize that if there's no capital, there's no work either. So this is why I think that these two essential concepts are crucial. And this is something that we achieved many years ago in Iberdrola. And in the years that I worked for the company, there was not a single accident. Many years went by, and we were congratulated by the Ministry of Labour because of the absence of accidents. And to finish, I trust and hope that you will be willing to meet up with me in person. And I would like to say hello to my son, who's living in the Canary Islands. And I'd also like to greet all of my friends, too. And to conclude, I would like to thank you for your help. Thank you very much.
Don Adolfo, tiene la palabra.
Thank you very much. Felipe Izquierdo Tellez has the floor.
Buenos días, señoras y señores. Mi nombre es Felipe Izquierdo.
My name is Felipe Izquierdo. Good morning. When I was a kid, I was taught that we need to be grateful for things. And last year after the meeting, we were invited to have a glass of wine. And regarding the points on the agenda, my vote will be in favor of the adoption of all the resolutions, but with a comment. In my modest opinion, for reasons of aesthetics and ethics, Mr. Aceves should not form part of the board of directors. Until his legal situation is clarified for his involvement with Bankia. I don't want to end before first congratulating the chairman, since at the helm of Iberdrola, with a firm hand and wise decisions, once again this year, he has satisfied at least most of the shareholders and is an example even for the competition. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much. Maria Basterra Romo has the floor.
Buenos días.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk about Garoña. Nobody wants to fly in an aeroplane when they know that the aeroplane is out of date, so to speak, and too old to continue to work. And nevertheless, the owners continue to do that in the case of Garoña. And obviously, if an accident occurs which result in death, the responsibility will not just touch your reputation, it will be legal and criminal responsibility. Garoña is a nuclear power plant which is past its sell-by date. If a catastrophe were to occur, then the reputation of this company would suffer. It would be condemned by society in general. And I don't think that this company should risk that. So please bear that in mind.
Thank you very much, Chairman. All the shareholders have finished their presentations.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, and which I will try to answer now. And those that are not answered, well, you can send them in writing according to the deadlines established by the law. But firstly, you were asking about dividends. Dividends are an absolute priority, and this has been one of our priorities for many years. And having a dividend that is sustainable and sustained over the years. or over time. I think that this is what we did in the past, and that's what we're doing at this point in time, and this is what we're going to be doing in the future too. So rest assured, because your savings in Iberdrola are properly safeguarded. And they're properly safeguarded, and I said this morning, because we have a model. We have a model that allows us to have this predictability in this company, your company. Our policy, as I mentioned in the presentation this morning, is to have a floor of at least 0.27 euros per share, and have for the dividends a scenario between 65 and 75% of the profits that we generate. So this is our policy, and this is what I hope we'll be able to apply in the future. The second issue that you were asking about has to do with the Shareholders' Day. Why the Shareholders' Day? Well, we have, in the last years and months, we've been saying that we wanted to engage the shareholder, and we wanted it to be a much higher level of participation. And one of the reasons for this attendance premium is so that you can show up, so that we can listen to your ideas and your comments, so that we can get to know you, hundreds of thousands of private shareholders. We never have the opportunity of seeing you during the year. So this is why we have set up platforms like the Hola Accionistas, or the shareholders website, and the shareholders club, so that we can establish this interaction. And we usually hold meetings with institutional investors, and this takes place one day every year. We call it the Investors' Day, but we also have the one-to-one seminars that happen very frequently. And we would like to extend these actions we're carrying out with institutional investors. We would also like to do this with personal investors. So this is the reason. And what I believe is that whatever you have to say is very pertinent, and we enjoy listening to you, and we want to know about your views. But why not do so in a festive manner, so to speak? Because we have a company that has good results, and these results are sustainable. So we went through a crisis, as the CFO mentioned, and we have more solidity than we started. And throughout this process, we have been paying very reasonable dividends. And last year, we had a record in terms of profitability per shareholder compared to the rest of the European utilities. So this is the main reason, and this is why we believe that we have to see you, and this is the reason behind the Shareholders' Day. And you asked something about areas of expansion. I think that strategic decisions, they normally have repercussions. They're normally not immediate, but rather mid-termish. And a few years ago, we took some significant strategic decisions. We were the first to put our stakes on renewables, and we also put our stakes on the regulated business, and we put our stakes on some emerging countries, and others were developed countries, where we are seeing that we are obtaining very satisfactory results. And in these countries, we have wonderful growth opportunities. I've already given you the figures, and I've already given you the total figures of the projects, like in the UK, with the distribution and transmission system, or the wind farms, or the new power stations in Mexico, and so on and so forth. So in these countries where we operate, we have sufficient growth potential, and we will not have to urgently look for other opportunities. Having said that, our company is very careful about what's happening around it. And if at a given point in time we see that there is an opportunity somewhere, we'll look into it. But we don't need to go out searching anything. So where we're operating, we have enough room to have sustainable growth over the years. And I'm saying this in relation to the question on Mexico. Mexico is a beautiful example, because we went to Mexico 15 years ago. And yesterday I had the opportunity, the former president of Mexico, Ernesto Zedillo, was with us to participate in an event to discuss his management experience. He has worked as a lecturer at a North American university, but he does not only have outstanding academic experience, but also political and management experience, and he discussed with us a number of issues. So in Mexico, we went there 15 years ago, and that's when we started to make our investments. And at that point in time, very few people were putting their stakes on Mexico, practically nobody. We were pioneers in a country where there was a state monopoly, where the there was the Federal Electricity Commission. It wasn't open to the market, and there were certain rules and regulations that were not fully defined. But over the years, this has meant that we have become the second electricity supplier in Mexico, and nearly 15 or 20% of the electricity is produced by us. And we are sending it to the Federal Electricity Commission, most of it, and we are now an outstanding company. We are a solid, clean, transparent, and professional company. And now there's a new energy reform in place, and there are plenty of opportunities. And it's a country that is not unknown to us, but rather the opposite. So we feel very Mexican. 98 or 99% of our workforce there are Mexicans. The managers are Mexicans, and they are resorting to the group's best practices. So it's a country that offers us major opportunities. We are building 2 combined cycle power stations and 2 cogeneration plants. We're building wind farms, and we'll continue in the future along these lines too. Right, the 2016 plan, what do we think about it? Well, I said this before, we are optimistic, and we are optimistic because we are doing our homework, and we're not talking about plans only on paper. We're talking about power stations that are being constructed. We're talking about lines under construction. We're talking about regulatory frameworks that have been agreed upon. So therefore, we have a visibility of something that is already underway. So that's why we are optimistic, and we know that we can get this done. But apart from that, we are facing a situation that at this point in time is being very handy, and that's the exchange rate and the efficiency measures that we've implemented over the years, which without a doubt are going to produce some very suitable results in the future. The question on the electric vehicle. And perhaps, well, part of my life I spent it on that because I started to work as an engineer at a company called Tudor, and we manufactured batteries. And my main task was to design, well, initially it was batteries for electrical equipment, for electric vehicles. And then the electric vehicles were used apart from forklift truck. It was the milkman in the UK. Those of you that are of my age, you probably have seen these vehicles in the UK. I've designed lots of batteries. I've manufactured and sold plenty of batteries too. So whatever has a connection with electric vehicle, I'm a fan of that. And I arrived aboard an electric vehicle because I think that there's a future for these vehicles. But predicting how much electrical demand there's going to be if all the vehicles were to be transformed into electric vehicles, well, this is a very difficult question to answer, because this depends on many circumstances. In other words, what power they're going to have, how they're going to be used. Is it going to be 100% electrical, or is it going to be, as is already happening, which I think is going to happen over the next few years, is it going to be plug-in hybrid plus thermal? Anyway, well, just to give you a figure, as it's not a complete or an absolute figure, but it could be 20 to 25% more in terms of electricity demand all over the world, which is good news, because once again we are in a favorable sector. If that happens, thank goodness, because we are ready technically and economically to carry this out. So I wouldn't be able to give you an exact figure, but I think that it's good news. It's good to see that transportation will be electrified for those companies that work in the field of electricity. The future of the utilities. Well, I have to say in this respect that, well, this is something that I mentioned previously. We did present a document at the Davos Economic Forum, the Energy Committee. I'm the chairperson, and we discussed the future of electricity. And if I'm not mistaken, we've focused on the developed countries. And this year, we're going to be doing this, but for the emerging and developing countries. So on the whole, I believe, I said this before, I think it's 1.3 billion people that still do not have access to electricity. So that we can, well, we think that we require investments of about $20 trillion. $20 trillion. And these are absolutely dreadful figures. But in the case of the OECD countries, the Western countries, this figure, these 20 trillion, well, it could be 7 or 8. And what is it we need? Well, this has to be done to substitute obsolete plants, generation plants that produce lots of emissions. Coal-fired plants have to be replaced by power stations with less emissions, renewables, and new grids that can provide access to these renewable technologies, smart grids to be able to manage these demands should the use of electric vehicles become a widespread option. And this means that what we need to spend lots of money, we have to make massive investments, and we need lots of technology. And the companies of the sector have all of that. And what else do we need? And this was mentioned by the European Commission. We needed to have incentivizing frameworks, stable frameworks, predictable frameworks, so that in a way we can convince all of you, dear shareholders, that it's worthwhile investing. I think that it is worthwhile investing in that.
Contribución.
And then we have the fiscal or tax contribution. I gave you some figures, but let's see if I can give you some more information. I believe that a company like Iberdrola is a driving force for the economy. It's a driving force because it does not only produce jobs within, but also without, and many of the jobs in the environment. So it is managing the future of technology because we purchase our 5.4 billion in goods and services, not energy products. So that is more. And that is equipment, transformers, cables, switches, turbines, I don't know, spares of all kinds, and generators. And then apart from all of that, we have a contribution in terms of public taxes. And in Spain, and if I'm not mistaken, I have some figures here. I'm not sure if these are the correct ones, though. I think that last year we made a contribution. When I say contribution, it's checks paid into the different IRS services. We pay the Spanish IRS, the provincial councils of Vizcaya and Navarre. We pay all of the tax collectors, and I think the total was about 3.2 billion euros, of which approximately 1.3 or 1.3 something have been chargeable to your revenues. In other words, this is what you have generated in your energy business, in the investments you have here, which is approximately 50% of the revenues generated before taxes and before levies. In other words, we are making a very significant contribution, and I feel proud of being able to do this because this is the contribution we have for all of the things that have been mentioned here in relation to our society. We are doing what we have to do, that is paying taxes, your taxes, with your money, so that society can be much better and so that we can solve all the problems and deficiencies that our society has. There has been another question too from Julia Sutherland. Well, I'm very glad to see that you find that we have a very clear-cut policy and that we are doing what has to be done in order to have parity at all levels. I feel very proud to see that we are the IBEX company. We are one of the major companies with the largest number of women on the board. And the coordinator is Ines, who's from Bilbao, and I think that she is the person that controls the things that we do incorrectly on the board. But apart from that, I also feel very satisfied to see that in recent years we have multiplied by 4 the number of women on the workforce. And I feel proud to say that the number of managers, women managers, is growing. And we have Solange Ribeiro here, who's the chairperson of Neoenergia in Brazil. And we also have the chairperson of Central Powers, Sarah Burns, and Sheila Duncan, who's the Director of Human Resources in Scotland, and she will occupy this position in the United States. And they're doing their work wonderfully well, and they're doing whatever has to be done so that in the future this can progress. And this is our policy, the policy we have in the company. And I also have to say that these 400 people receiving scholarships that the company is funding, well, a large proportion of them, and I think that some of the most brilliant students are women. And since last year, and when we handed over the scholarships and the event was attended by the King and Queen of Spain, most of them were girls, brilliant young girls from different countries and who right now are doing their PhDs. And then you asked something else. Well, Mr. Adolfo de la Torre, well, definitely you will be able to meet up with me in Madrid. I will be delighted to discuss things with you. And then the rest of the questions, Mr. Felipe Izquierdo. Well, thank you very much about what you said about the reception, and I hope that we're able to see each other now. And thank you all very much. Thank you.
Seguidamente.
And now we're going to vote the different items on the agenda. So,
for the vote on point 7 of the agenda regarding the ratification of the appointment and re-election of directors, and the vote on point 12 of the agenda, the directors that have a conflict of interest will abstain from the right to vote representing the shares they represent, unless an indication against by the shareholders represented. If the shareholders were in conflict, then the secretary will assign the vote. According to the regulations, the votes in favour of the proposed resolutions made by the Council we can consider to be all those shares present and represented whose owners or representatives have not indicated that they have voted against or abstained. Both the votes issued remotely as well as in the case of delegations have been counted according to the various votes. And this has been done by a prestigious auditing company which has scrutinized the vote, and the applied procedures are in agreement with the corporate governance system. The shareholders that are present or the representatives that wish to vote against, cast a blank vote or abstain regarding some or all of the proposed resolution should indicate this to the notary. The result of the vote count on the points of the agenda credits that there is sufficient majority to adopt all the proposed resolutions put to this board, since they have more than half of the voting rights present or represented.
So, according to the data that the panel has and which will be covered in the minutes of the meeting, all of the proposals are duly carried, regardless of other votes that could be listed. So, we therefore close the general shareholders meeting and we adjourn the session. But before leaving the room, please remain in your seats for a few more minutes so that you can listen to the Rossini Choir, one of the most internationally renowned ensembles, that they're going to play the song Marichu Nora Soas. And I'm sure that you will enjoy listening to their performance because it is a highly appreciated work.
Yeah.